In the previous tutorial, alright, when we add the line over here, and if I double click on this, okay, I actually have two control points added at the ends of the line. Alright, so the idea, okay, is to move, let's say, this control point. Alright, let's say if I move this, I want this end of the line to follow this control point. Okay, so we will learn how to do that, but before I show you the coding, okay, in doing that, there is actually an error. Alright, so let me illustrate. Okay, let's say I refresh this. Alright, and if there's no line over here, I just double click on the canvas. As you can see, there is actually an error over here. Alright, so it says cannot read property stroke width of null. Okay, so let's go to our coding and see why is this so. Alright, so we switch on this double click event. Okay, and when this double click event fires off, alright, all the coding inside this function, okay, should be, well, will be executed. Alright, and our pointer 1 and pointer 2, okay, we give it some properties. Alright, and the first property that we gave it was the radius, and the radius is the object's thickness. Okay, the stroke width is the thickness of the line. Alright, so the radius is the line's thickness multiplied by 3. Now this can only occur if I double click on the line. Alright, but because I double click on the canvas, okay, and it's not on the object at all, there's this arrow over here. Okay, it's because the stroke width is not defined. Okay, there's no stroke width to begin with. Alright, so what we need to do is to add some conditions, and we can say that if there is no object, so this is how we write there is no object, exclamation mark by the object variable. Alright, so if there is no object, we return. We return. Okay, so this tells us that with this keyword return, anything that is below will not be executed at all. Alright, now else means that since the first part was if there's no object, so else means there is an object. Alright, the opposite. Okay, so else if there is an object, alright, and I want to add another condition. Okay, so if the object's ID is equals to the added line, alright, and this added line is what we gave, okay, to all the lines that we added on the canvas. Alright, so if you refer back to over here, okay, the start adding line, so this line over here, we gave it an ID of added line. Alright, so all the lines that we added has this ID. So with this condition, alright, so the double click event, if the object's ID is added line, let's copy all this and paste it inside here. Okay, so now what this means that if there's no object, we return. Okay, so no more execution of any code. Alright, but if there is an object, and furthermore, alright, if the object's ID is added line, we execute all of this code over here. Alright, so let's see whether we still have that error. Over here, we add line, okay, deactivate. So let's say if I double click on elsewhere, as you can see, there is no error at all. Okay, now if I double click on this line, alright, so the control points are being added. Alright, but okay, I encountered a, well, so-called a problem, okay, but it's not an error, okay, it's actually a problem, okay, recently. All right, and let me show you the problem that I encountered. All right, let's say I add a line over here. Okay, so if I do not move the line, I just double click it, okay, the two control points would be added correctly, okay, at the correct positions. But now, let's say if I move this line, let's say to here, and I double click this, as you can see, the control points are added onto the original positions, okay, of the line. Okay, so the x, y, and y1 coordinate over here and the x2 and y2 coordinates of the line is actually not updated. All right, so we need to rectify this. Okay, and let me try to explain how we are going to go about solving this problem. All right, so let's say I add the line over here. Okay, now this line is actually confined within a box over here. All right, and we can actually get the center point over here. Okay, so let's try to get this center point. All right, and in order to get this center point, we can actually decide on what event, okay, in order to get this center point. Like, let's say if it's a mouse down, if I press my mouse down, okay, I must get this center point of the line. All right, or maybe if I rotate it, okay, as it rotates, I must get the center point of the line. But since the problem now comes because the line has been moved, all right, so we would get the center point by the event object being moved. All right, so there is actually an event which is called object moved for Fabric. All right, so let me illustrate it over here. So let's say over here we can switch on an event, okay, and this event would be object moved. All right, and this would be, okay, let's say update, okay, update new line coordinates. All right, so now since we actually have these two switch on events over here, we can actually combine them. Okay, so how do we combine them? All right, so we just add a curly bracket over here. So this is not a comma anymore, is colon. All right, and we can actually shift this down. All right, and we can copy this, paste it over here. So this is not a comma, it's a colon over here. All right, so this is one way, okay, to combine all the events. All right, so now we want to write some coding for this function over here, update new line coordinates when the object has been moved. All right, so function. Okay, so what do we write over here? All right, so what we want to do is to find the center point of this box over here. So the center point is over here. All right, so what we can do first is to add a parameter, and for this parameter, all right, we say let object equals to o.target. All right, and since it's object move, okay, so we don't need this condition if there's no object. All right, because this object move event only fires off when we have already selected an object. All right, so what we need to do is to add this condition instead. If the object's ID is this, all right, so if it's this, okay, let's try to console.log, all right, the well, the center X position. Okay, so let's call this center X position. All right, and console.log the center Y position. So plus center Y. So I have not actually defined what is center S and center Y. So let's define it over here. So we let center X be equals to, so center S is actually the S, the center, or rather the X coordinate of the center point, all right, of the box. Okay, so for this, it would be the objects dot get center point and dot X, all right, and we let center Y equals to object dot get a center point dot Y. All right, so now let's console.log these two and see whether we can get the center point, okay, of the object. All right, so over here we add a line. Okay, so when I move this, all right, it is still not, the event has still not yet been fired off. All right, it is only fired off when I stop moving the object. Okay, so that's why past tense. All right, object moved. So let's say I move it to this point over here, and as you can see, the coordinates of the center X and the center Y are this. All right, so if I move it to a different place, we have different coordinates over here, and these are the coordinates of the center point over here. All right, so now why do I want to do this? Okay, let me make the line a little bit bigger so the box can be bigger over here. All right, so we have center X and center Y. So now we have this. Okay, there is another function that we can actually find out. All right, is the offset of these coordinates over here, these X and Y coordinates of this end point of the line, and the offset coordinates of this end point of the other end point of this line. Okay, so what do I mean by that? All right, so let's say we let, okay, x1 offset, okay, be equals to object dot calculate line points. Okay, hopefully I remember this correctly. All right, so calculate line points, and this should be dot x1. All right, so let's just copy all this. So we need to have 4 of them because we have x1 and y1. Okay, x2, and this should be x2, and this is y2, so y2. All right, now let's try to console.log all this. So console.log, okay, so the first one will be x1 offset, so plus x1 offset over here. All right, and let's try to copy this and paste 3 more times. So this should be y1, this is y1, and this should be x2, and this is x2, and this should be y2, y2. All right, so let's console.log all of this and see what do we have. Okay, so I add a line over here. Let's move this. Maybe I should add a bigger, a longer line. Okay, so the box can be better, seen better. All right, so let's say I move this to over here. Okay, so now the coordinates of the center point, X is 1123, Y is 290, so it's over here. Okay, now the S1 offset, meaning 1123 is the X coordinate of the center point, if I minus 217.5, so it means I go to the left over here, the S1 coordinate of this line, okay, at the end of this line would be that. Alright, so the S1 coordinate of the end of this line is 1123 minus 217.5. Alright, and the Y coordinate of the center, so 290 over here. Okay, so if I add 129.5, so 290 plus 129.5 means I go down over here. So first I go to the left, okay, then I go down and I get the X1 and Y1 coordinates. All right, so we can do the same for the X2 and Y2 coordinates. All right, so 1123 plus 217.5 would be over here. Then I minus 129.5, so I minus means I go up higher. All right, and I will get the X1 and the X2 and the Y2 coordinates. Okay, so this can help us to actually find out the new coordinates. Okay, the new X1 and X1, Y1, X2, Y2 coordinates. Okay, so how do we do that? All right, we actually can create an object, say let new line coordinates be equals to an object over here. All right, and this new line coordinates, okay, so we can put in X1. Okay, so S1 would be the center X plus the X1 offset. Okay, so if S1 offset is minus, so plus minus, well, it eventually becomes minus. Okay, so we add up all the offsets. All right, we do not minus, we do not subtract all the offsets. Okay, we just add them up. All right, so Y1 would be center Y plus Y1 offset. Okay, and X2 would be center X plus, this time it would be X2 offset. Okay, and the last one is Y2. This would be center Y plus Y2 offset. All right, so now we have all the new updated X1, Y1, X2, and Y2 points, okay, the coordinates over here. All right, so on our when we double click, okay, the pointer one, all right, the top and the left positions wouldn't be this object.y1, object.x1. Okay, so it would be this updated coordinate. So new line coords y1, new line coords x1, dot x1. All right, and this one would be new line coords dot y2, new line coords dot x2 over here. All right, so let's test this out and see whether this works. Okay, so I'm just checking whether everything is all right. Looks all right. Okay, let's test this out. So let's say I have my line over here. Okay, let's say I move this over here, and previously, okay, when I move the object, when I double click on this, the two pointers are actually at the original x1, y1 and x2, y2 coordinates. All right, so the two pointers would be over here. Okay, the two control points. But since we have already changed the coding, let's see whether it is the two control points will be added correctly. All right, so I double click this. All right, yes, okay. So it is added correctly. All right, so I was holding my breath just now. All right, so yes, it is added correctly, and let's check again. Okay, so let's say I add two lines over here. So I move this over here, I move this over here, and let's double click this. Yes, this is correct. Let's double click this. Something is wrong over here. All right. So the pointers are added onto the previous, okay, onto the previous created, on this created line only. All right. So why is this a problem? Let's go back to our coding. All right. So we have this over here. Okay. So let's see what is happening. Maybe we have to always make this empty when we move the object. All right. So let's see this works. Okay. So I add two lines. Okay. I move this here. I move this here. All right. So okay, this is correct. What about this? It's still not correct, and I think I know why. Okay, because actually I need to move this over here. I need to move the object, and if I double click, now it will be added onto the line over here. All right, so we need to actually rectify this. And I think the way to rectify this is, okay, if I do not move the object, all right, I do not move this line, okay, the circles, all right, the control points are actually added on this line instead. All right, so we actually have to have another event, okay, for this update new line coordinates. Not only object moved, all right, let's say object, selection created. Okay, selection created means that previously there's no selected objects, and I select an object, and when I select an object, this would fire off. All right, so our update new line coordinates would be updated, okay, for that particular object. But not only this, okay, we also need a selection updated. Selection updated. I think it's selection updated. Let's go to Fabric first and see is it updated. So what we can do is to go to the event inspector, Fabric.JS demo over here. So we have selection created and selection updated. All right. Okay, so let's save this, and hopefully, okay, everything would be all right. Okay, let's see. So I add a line here, I add a line here. Okay, so I move this, I move this. So my last movement is this object over here. Okay, so the updated x1, y1, x2, and y2 coordinates would be for this line object. Okay, so if I double click this, it shouldn't be a problem. All right, now if I select this, okay, now my updated x1, y1, x2, y2 coordinates must be for this object, hopefully. All right, so let's see. Yes, it is. All right, so this is how we rectify this problem. Okay, and in the next video, okay, we'll talk more about how to move the end of the line as we move one of the control points in order to redraw this line. All right, so see you in the next video.